Hello, Alice Wheaton here. It's a pleasure to be with you today, and I want to chat to you today about one of my favorite subjects, and that is negotiation. Negotiation is about asking for what you want. Now, it's not to say that you can get everything that you want, but you can get some of it. I have a rule in my life, and that is if you ask for everything you want, if you ask for everything you want, you have an 80% chance of getting it. So think about it like this. You get 8 of the things that you ask for, or outcomes. Now, the truth is that no, you already have. You already have no. So if you ask, then you increase the chances of getting a yes. I'm recording this webinar today in my home office studio. And so if you hear a dog bark or a cat meow, that just simply means that I am active with Animal Rescue Foundation, and I may have just rescued a new pet. So please bear with me. I hope you smile, as I will too. A lot of people think that a negotiation is meant for the powerful and the rich and the politicians. And that's not so at all. Negotiation is meant for everyone. A while ago, when I was traveling with Air Canada, there was an Air Canada magazine with an ad at the back of the page about negotiation. And one of the sayings that it had was really, really hit home with me. And that was, in business, as in life, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. And it's interesting, if you were to Google that, you would see that that's all over. There's pages and pages of websites and information and interesting quotes to do with negotiation. So I hope the time that we spend with you today will give you a few ideas where you can step out of your comfort zone and ask for what you want, whether that's a small thing or a little thing. Now, a lot of people also think that in negotiation it's either this or that, and that's not necessarily so. Let's say that I have a package of markers. I've got 2 red, 2 black, 2 blue, and 2 green markers. And so I use this as an example in my workshops, and I ask, what do you think is a win-win? And so without fail, someone will pick one of each, 1 red, 1 black, 1 blue, and 1 green, and the other person gets 1 black, 1 blue, and 1 green. But that's not negotiation. Negotiation is if you want 2 blues and 2 greens, no blacks and no reds. And so how do you then have a conversation with the other person so that you can get what you want, or as close to it as possible, while they still walk away happy? In that case, for instance, you might say, I will have the 2 blues and the 2 greens, please. And the other person might say, well, I want the 2 blue and 2 greens. But you could up-level your offering by saying, if I can have the 2 blues and the 2 greens, what I will do is throw in this book and this sketch pad so that you can have your 2 blacks and your 2 reds plus something else. So you walk away with the 2 blacks and 2 reds, but you walk away with sketch pad and a book. And so the other person is happy. You're happy and the other person's happy. Some people would get all upset, really, and say, well, no, that's not fair. Yeah, whatever makes you happy and the other person happy is fair. It doesn't have to be, pie doesn't have to be sliced down the middle. In fact, speaking of pies, I'm not fond of goopy pies. I'd much prefer to give my partner my piece of the pie with all the fruit in it and get his crust. And so I have a lot less pie, but I am happier because I don't like eating the goopy part. So you see, negotiation is helping create a win-win. It doesn't mean this and that, and they have to be equal. When it comes to asking for what you want, so many people spend their time in fear. they think that when they ask for what they want, they're putting themselves into somewhat of a vulnerable position. And in a way, that's true, because our sweet self does not want to be rejected. In fact, we're not really built to be rejected at all. We have a gland at the back of our brain that causes us to feel fear. And as you see on this particular slide here, fear shows up in almost everything we want to do where there is a risk. I like to say that everything we want, at least anything of great value, comes with fear. First, we feel fear, and then we feel passion. Then we feel courage. And when we feel courage, we can take the imperfect action. But when so many people are perfectionists, where they want to step outside their comfort zone and they want to ask for what they want or apply for that new job or ask for a promotion, what happens is that fear takes us into our discomfort zone. And what happens is that we then don't rise to the level of expertise or intelligence. But it's the passion, and passion is the genesis. Fear is the genesis of passion. Passion is a 2,000-year-old word. It comes from, it's Latin. It comes from the Passion of the Christ. And what it means, actually, is the willingness to suffer and die for your cause. And I don't think anyone is going to ask you to suffer and die for your cause. So my personal definition of motivation is someone who is willing to feel uncomfortable in order to achieve their goals. To pay a price? Yes, but not to die. Maybe suffer, maybe feel uncomfortable, but the fact is that the amygdala, just Google that and you'll get tons of information, A-M-Y-G-D-A-L-A. The amygdala is a little gland at the back of our brain about the size of an almond. It causes us to feel fear. And what would it be like to be able to manage that fear? And that's what courage does. Courage helps us to manage the fear so that we give up our perfectionistic. I'm not saying to give up wanting to be excellent, but you know, almost no one steps into any arena and is perfect the first time. And we take imperfect action, and then we test and we modify. Then when we do that cycle again and again, we actually become competent. And when we're competent, we're confident. And when we're confident, we then move into the comfort zone because we're doing the same thing over and over that we already know how to do well. That doesn't serve any of us. So then we move out of comfort zone into fear. And look, we're back faced with fear again. And so that's how it is with negotiation. We have to have a passion for what we want. Then we have the courage to ask for what we want. We sometimes do it perfectly or imperfectly, but whatever we do, we test and we modify. We learn from the last mistakes. And eventually we're back to fear. And so everything you want is on the other side of fear. Fear is the #1 cause of failure to negotiate. Now, the other thing that's interesting about negotiation is that in order to negotiate and negotiate well, you have to be willing to walk away. So if you have a friend and your friend happens to be a complainer who's almost never on time, and you ask her, you create a boundary and say, no, you know what, I'm sorry, I can't wait outside your house anymore to go to that movie and we rush in 10, 15 minutes late. It's just not going to happen. You have to be willing to walk away because that person may become offended. That person may say no. The other thing to do, and I had that perfect situation, is that I finally said, I will wait outside your house. I will pick you up every time, and I will wait 3 minutes. If you're not there in 3 minutes, then I will leave and you take your car. And it's interesting. I did do that, and she's never been late since. Isn't that funny? So having the ability to walk away is one of the key ingredients of negotiation. Ask for what you want, create a clear boundary, and be willing to walk away. Some people are so invested that they don't want to walk away. but I'm not willing to be treated with disrespect again and again and again and again and again. So you finally, and if you like that, then you finally will create that boundary. Most people do think that they're poor negotiators, but it's oftentimes, it's not that they're poor negotiators, it's just that they have not learned how to. Negotiation is a skill, the same as professional speaking is. Most people would not like to do professional speaking. Recently, when my son sent me a text from university, said, I have to do my presentation now. I can't believe you do this for a living, all in cap letters. And so he coped by negotiating with his professor and the entire class that he would go first. And so, and the reason is that he could not stand to sit there and listen to 20-odd speakers, students, do their presentations while he suffered in anticipation. So that was a great negotiation skill to use, to simply ask to go first. And the win-win there was it gave all the other students more time to prepare. It gave students coming after him ideas that they could do or not do. And it gave the professor at least someone who was willing to start. So a lot of time it comes with practice. No one ever becomes a great world-class negotiator the first time they try. So what do you think you will achieve if you're a better negotiator? Will you have better relationships? I would think so. My friend, we have a great relationship. My friend, when it's time to go to a movie, we decide which movie we're going to go to, and then what happens, we already have the time set, so I'm not stuck waiting for her. If you're a better negotiator, you will be able to ask early and often for that job promotion. And if you don't receive it, you get an objection, and because you've developed the courage by now, you'll be able to ask why. You'll be a better manager because you'll be able to deal with people's tawdry behavior, or you'll be able to deal with their excellent behavior. When you're a better manager, you can step up to the plate and ask for what you want. Relationships are harder, I think, than work relationships. But wouldn't it be nice if we were authentic? And what authentic means is that we're exactly the same at home, at office, or with friends. An authentic person is someone who shows up the same way all the time. And so if you're a great negotiator in personal relationships, you'll learn to do that as work as well. And so we'll get to the business deals. I'm in the game of sales. I'm the profession of sales, and I love it. I love working with clients and helping them get past the stalled proposal. I love helping them, if they're stuck at a certain level of an organization, I love helping them negotiate, getting to the top. And as a result of that, they're able to close better deals. But if you're stuck at a certain level with a proposal and that person doesn't have signing authority, but is the one you believe you have the relationship with, and you can't negotiate upwards, then somebody is going to do so for you in your place, and then you're not going to win. And so when you're a negotiator, you won't feel as if you're taken advantage of. You get to ask for what you want, and you give people the right to say no. That creates receptivity, and it increases the chances of you winning. An example might be if I had some boxes to move to a storage area from my office, and I said to you, I wonder if you would be willing to help me move some of my boxes. But by all means, say no to me if this is inconvenient, and not to worry about saying no. It's really okay to say no to me. You increase the chances of them saying yes because you tap into the psychological process called reciprocity. Most people want to be reciprocal. And when you're able to negotiate, you're able to say no much easier because no actually is a complete sentence, although most people find it hard to say no. And instead they make excuses or justify and defend, or say they will and then not. So what is your nature? Are you agreeable, assertive, or aggressive? And you know, agreeable people negotiate just as much as assertive people do. They just negotiate differently. My partner is much more agreeable than I am. I'm more on the assertive. I'm between assertive and agreeable. But he's much more agreeable. And I've learned that if I ask him for something and he doesn't say an explicit yes or no, then I know it's a no, or that he doesn't really want to. And so then it's my job to respect that and give him a choice. Okay, for instance, right now, I'm negotiating with him on going to Hungary the 15th of August and until the September 15th, and he does not particularly want to go. And so I'm willing to go on my own. An assertive person will say, which is what I will say eventually if he says no completely, okay, no worries. I will go to Hungary, and then at Christmas time, if you want to go to Palm Desert, which is your favorite spot, I'll still go with you. But it's part of my value system to travel to countries I've never been, and I love doing that. And so away I'll go, and then away we will go. But if I were unable to say that, then the offshoot is to be resentful. And there is no future in being resentful because everybody gets their power back eventually. So someone who is really, really sweet but feels taken advantage of is somehow going to let that affect the relationship, which is why negotiating relationships can be more difficult than businesses. But if you understand the other person, but you also know your boundaries, then it's easier to do. When it comes to the aggressive person, the person on the bottom of that slide there, the aggressive people are really, really difficult to negotiate with, and sometimes difficult to get along with. And if I'm in a negotiation process with an aggressive person, what I do is I position it first by saying, do you believe in justice and fair play? And so then if that person starts to get aggressive, I'll stop and slow down the person and say, wait, are you still in agreement with justice and fair play? So I keep bringing them back to that true north, as it were, and saying, it doesn't feel like justice and fair play. It doesn't feel like justice and fair play to me. So where do we need to restart? Where do we need to press the restart button? And if a person becomes really, really aggressive, I'll say, it's not my intention to take your position away from you, as I suspect it's not your position to take mine away from me. So why don't we agree to walk away and wish the other well? That's may better. And so the person who makes the final decision to walk away in an aggressive situation is actually the winner, because to stay there would certainly be a lose situation instead of a win-win. And any negotiation that's not a win-win ultimately is a win-win, is a win-lose. So people make mistakes in negotiation that they need not make, that have nothing to do with skill set. One of the mistakes that people make is that they believe everything they think. And what do you think most people believe? Most people believe that they're not good at negotiating. And so what happens is that oftentimes people become passive-aggressive or they become aggressive. And either way creates resentment. The passive-aggressive person might be resentful of the other person. An aggressive person might be resentful that they are being stopped in their tracks for getting what they want. And so also believing what you think means that you know what the other person wants. And it's impossible to know what the other person wants until you've actually checked it out with them, until you've actually asked them what would work for you. And one way to do it is to say what one thing would work for you. I don't know, those of you who are listening, if you have children, you know that when you say to them when you come home from school, what did you learn from school today? Quite often they'll say, nothing. I learned very early on to say to my son, what one thing did you learn from school today? And when I say that, what one thing did you learn from school today, then he would tell me. Now, years later, he's 29 now, but years later, he told me that oftentimes, about a block from school, he'd make up something. And I was not upset about that at all, because it simply means that when a child is a negotiator, it means that they can practice critical thinking. And so at least before the last block home, he was, trying to think of something coherent and rational to tell me. And so when you are working with your clients, just ask one question and say to the client, what one thing would stop the negotiation process between us? And what one thing wouldn't? What one thing would cause it to go forward satisfactorily, and what one thing wouldn't? If that person then says something that's completely unreasonable, then you say to them, oh, but that's not a win-win. And I thought we wanted win-win. And that you can say that every time you get into a situation where the client or the friend or the family member was wanting you to do something that's not a win-win. You could always say, that was not a win-win, and I think we both want a win-win. And so when you believe everything you think, what you've done is you've set yourself up as a mind reader. And we need to have a forensic attitude about what we think. And it's interesting, often in workshops I'll say to clients, do you believe everything you think? And they look around at each other and they go, yeah, I do. I believe everything I think. But you know what? Even scientific people think that. Truth is that we have to check it out. We have to confirm it or not. And so we confirm it or not by questioning the client. I've been thinking this, is it true? And the other mistake people make is that they settle for the first offer. They settle for the first offer because they don't know how to ask for more. And so here's my rule of thumb. Go into your job interview or go to your request and ask for what you want. Now, I'm not going to show this to my partner, and I hope no one tells him, but I would be willing to negotiate backwards instead of August 15th to September 15th. I'd be willing to negotiate back for 3 weeks. But I'm going to keep that in my pocket because I really do want to go for 4 weeks. But in order to create a win-win, because I really, really want him to be with him, I want him to come with me. He's never been to Hungary or Poland or Czechoslovakia, and I haven't either. And so I'd love to share that with him. So he doesn't know yet, but I'd shave that extra week off. So we'll see how that goes. Your interests don't have to be identical, you see. And that's why he's not particularly comfortable in traveling to areas where he thinks might be unstable because they have been in the past. But they have to be compatible. And traveling together and experiencing these things together, that's compatible for us. That's the compatible items on the negotiation table. The timing can be negotiated. The location, from my point of view, can't be. I'm not willing to go back to the Palm Desert again and again. I want to go someplace new. And so when you have the idea, the desire, though, for a win-win, you'll work it out. Here's the model for questioning. Remember when I mentioned questioning earlier? You have to find out that one thing that's so important to them. You do that. by using what I call the questioning tree. And so you ask a first question. That first question, the client's going to give you some answers. And then you use their answers to seed your next question. And then they're going to give you another answer, and you seed the second question and the third. And then once you've got all of that information uncovered, you understand their rationale, you understand their purpose, you understand their the absolute things that they won't negotiate on. When you know all of that, then at the very end, you can make your position. And because you know so much about them, you actually are way, way ahead. You can, by just using if this one slide makes it will make all the difference to you in the world. Just spend some time looking at it and practicing it on your friends. Ask them one question. What movie did you see last Friday? Or what was the last movie you saw? Did you like it? Yes. Oh, and they give you all the reasons why. And you say, oh, does that remind you of this other movie? And then pretty soon, you've got the whole story behind the story. If you don't ask the questions, you just know the first 20%, sort of like an iceberg. 80% is under the water, while 20% is on top. And so when you're willing to ask those questions, you're able to understand their essential items. And you understand their essential items. Then you know your compromise item. Now you know already my compromise item is that I'm willing to go for 3 weeks. Rather go for a month, but I'm willing to go for 3 weeks. And what's my throwaway item? My throwaway item is that I was willing to go back to Palm Desert with him for another month. And so hopefully I can find out enough information so that we're able to come to a compromise so that we're both happy. But you know, a compromise is not necessarily what you want. A compromise is not, if I had to give up 1 week, compromise, well, we'll just go for 2 then I wouldn't be happy. And so be really careful about your compromises. Make sure that when you throw away something, that you get something back. And so the number one step to getting what you want from anyone, this will up-level your life in so many areas. I mentioned it before, but I want to share it with you again because it's so important, is reciprocity. As soon as you tell people that they can say no to you, then what happens is that you get most of what you want. And you know, the other point is it's self-forgiveness. 1% solution is really all it takes. Pardon me. If you want to be a perfectionist, fine. You'll end up like that the top model there. But if you want to do the best you can, pardon me again, like now, then you'll make mistakes and then you'll succeed. And so you have a right to ask, and they have a right to say no. I want to thank you very much for being with me today. I'd love to hear your stories of negotiation, so feel free to email me. And until next time, bye for now.